Hello and welcome to round 5 of the Trans Am by Pirelli Esports Championship. I'm Jonathan Green, and it's been a fantastic debut for Trans Am in cyberspace. And today, we've got something very special for you. As many of you know, Trans Am is the oldest continuous road racing series, now in its 54th year. And today, we are taking you back in time, back to the late 60s and early 70s, when the likes of Dan Gurney, Parnelli Jones, and the great Mark Donohue were dominating American Trans Am racing. So don your bell bottoms and your tank tops to the sound of the Beach Boys and the Doors. Welcome to California of yesteryear, where we take you 50 miles east of Los Angeles to the famous Riverside International Raceway. Alongside me, as always, is Ben Sissel, who has got his bell bottoms on and is ready for a little bit of California sunshine. A little bit quiet at the moment, but we'll be going into qualifying. In fact, qualifying is underway. We are on the modern cars. That's the only thing modern about today. Ben, you're a creature of the 60s. I bet you're loving this, aren't you?
Oh, this is like taking a time machine, Jonathan. What an honor it is to be racing the Trans Am race at Riverside in these new Corvettes. Now, I just want to tell the audience that Trans Am races Corvettes similar to these, but we also race Mustangs, Camaros. We have a European GT series. But for the sake of this e-racing, all of the drivers are in the same cars, prepared the same. We do have some weight penalties that we're going to discuss, but today's format is 2 races. The first race is 12 laps. So right now we're in 10 minutes of qualifying at Riverside. First race is 12 laps. Then we have a little bit of a break, and then we invert the grid, the top 10, and they do 12 laps. And damage is on with these cars in the sim, meaning that if they hit somebody, hit the wall, it could affect their top speed. But Jonathan, we have a lot of really special drivers in this race. Can you cover some of the special drivers today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you don't need to look any further than I mentioned the name Mark Donohue, and of course his combination with Roger Penske back in the day was such a dominant factor of that period. And I'm delighted to say we've got David Donohue, his son, who is an accomplished racer himself. But he is racing, and it's his first sim race ever. And I love that fact, but he has decided to don the overalls and get in the sim for the first time. He actually bought the sim because he's actually racing GT3 at Pikes Peak and has been a winner there. But he actually got into sim racing, or at least getting a sim, so he could learn Pikes Peak. But he's never raced in an actual sim race. So today is his debut. And to make things harder because of his name, we broke one of his arms. Well, no, not quite. He's actually got a broken wrist at the moment, so he's struggling a little bit as we go on board with Edward Savagian, who we were talking to, or you were talking to earlier in the week. But that's just one of the big names, but it's one of the biggest, Ben, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And then another thing, I think the noteworthy one, we haven't gotten confirmation from David Donohue, but Boris Said is in this race. And yes, Boris raced here many times in, I think, a Corvette Challenge, you said, in NASCAR. But this is, I think Boris may be the only driver to have raced this in actual racing back in the 80s and 90s. And then he was, now he's racing with us in sims, not too far away from his house.
Yeah, and Riverside, just to put it in perspective, like I said, 50 miles from LA, so it was always a favorite for the rich and famous, as it were, from Hollywood. In fact, Bob Hope had an investment in the actual track at one point. But it was a great place for a movie set too. So Knight Rider, The Love Bug, you name it. They were all shot here. In fact, one of the scenes from the 1966 Grand Prix was shot here too. So there you go. It's been a good race set as well. And I'm sure some of the Hollywood stars would come out of a weekend and get into the desert and come out to Riverside and enjoy the racing.
So Jonathan, looking at our scores here, we've got 7 drivers that have passed the line. Who are you putting at the top of the list now that we've been following? This is our 5th round of this esports series with Trans Am. Who are the drivers that you are definitely not going to count out of this race?
Well, one of them is definitely JP Southern. I spoke to him earlier in the week. He's just graduated from high school, so congratulate him and also commiserate with him because he literally had to finish high school at home. No prom, no celebration, no nothing. His only celebration for getting out of high school is to race here in sim racing. So I wish JP Southern a lot of luck. But you've got to look at Lawrence, who's topping the times at the moment here in qualifying. Nick Racino has been probably the most consistent driver of our E-Championship and is yet to get on the podium. So he will be hungry, I'm sure. Josh Hurley, obviously, but he's got a penalty. We'll talk about the actual penalties in a moment because there are several drivers with penalties. Good to see Donohue already with one arm, just an 11th place. So he is a chip off the old block, for sure. But I'm also looking to see where Ridequist can go because he's got a heavy penalty. He's got 80 kilograms of extra weight, and he was saying to me that he reckons that's about 1.4 seconds.
Well, I think, honestly, this is the best time to kind of go through some of those penalties because I think the crowd will be surprised to know that a lot of our top drivers have big weight penalties. And as you mentioned, Ridequist is one of the top drivers with the largest weight penalty, but we know that Josh Hurley had an incident at the end of the race. He's our points leader. So he's racing with 40 kilograms. And Jonathan, weren't you telling me that Ridequist was saying that his weight penalty was good for over a second? He seemed like a lap.
Yeah, 1.4, he said. And so he isn't expecting too much, but I think he's a wily old fox. He's an engineer, and I think he's going to maybe look to try to finish 8th, 9th, or 10th and get himself in a position where, he can go for it. Because we have a reverse top 10 for the second race, just to give more of the rules a little bit. So watch out for that. Watch out who's in 10th position. So, for example, if this was the race, Donohue would start pole for the second race. And with this long run up the hill to turn 6, that first lap in race 2, if not in race 1, is going to be a real interesting one. We're on board with Ridequist now, going through turn 9, the big cambered NASCAR 9, I call it. But I think there's a couple of lines through there, but it kind of slingshots you onto this main straight. And as we go on board through that first turn, that's flat out. Then it starts to climb through what we call the S's. And here are those S's, and it climbs all the way up to turn 6. And it really is tough, especially with 30 cars all going up that hill. But it's exactly what it was like during the day, during the actual, I've been looking at YouTube, during the early 70s, it was very, very hairy is the best way I can describe it, going up that hill. And that's where most of the crowd would be at turn 6, waiting for them to come up that hill.
Yeah, we were in a driver's meeting earlier, and the race directors were very adamant about make sure that we try our best to get into single file there after turn 2 because it is so hairy trying to do that. Now, somebody could take that Richard Petty line through the dust, but that is not recommended.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and of course, let's remember the history of this circuit. Trans Am came here for a decade. NASCAR held a lot of big events here. The 500 was held here. One of the NASCAR 500s, not the Daytona one, obviously. But in fact, they were rivaling the likes of Daytona for attention. And Riverside had many a great NASCAR. Rusty Wallace winning the final race, I think, in '88. But then it closed down, and sadly, Riverside no more. I did look up some interesting factors, though. Riverside may not exist because what happened was LA effectively spread east, as you can imagine, and it became too much prime land. So there's now, sadly, a shopping mall where we're looking at right now. But if you go to this area, you will see several streets named after Sterling Moss, who won the only Formula One race back in 1960. And several other names like Donohue, Penske, and so on are on some of the street signs. But we're looking at the modern day man, which is Tyler Casera. And this is a big day for Tyler. If he's going to have a pop and a chance to get Hurley, this is his chance. He's got less weight than Hurley, and I think he's going to have to go for it here. Because it's been, well, let's talk about the season. If you've just joined us, this is round 5, and so far it's been the Hurley Casera show.
It sure has, and I love the sound. Oh, as he spins right there.
That was Ernie Francis Jr.
Yeah, look at our top 10, though. There really aren't that many surprises in our top 10, except because I think Casera and Hurley are back farther than we would expect because of the weight. But I'm really impressed with Donohue staying 14th, saying that this is his first sim race where these drivers have been doing a whole season with us now.
Yeah, it's been really, really interesting. And we've seen some surprises. Tyler Casera is one of them. He's not that well known in the racing circles. He's a Miata man by trade, as it were. He's new to Trans Am. He did a couple of races quite competitively last year. But he's really making a name for himself as he comes to a stop there after being hit by the looks of things. Tyler's been a real revelation, but so too has Josh Hurley. Hurley spends most of his time doing a lot of instruction. He's done a lot of racing in the past, but both those two guys have popped out here in this E-Series and have really stolen a march on everybody. Ernie Francis, though, stepped up at Daytona, at home in Florida, and of course the six-time champion in the real world, Ernie Francis Jr., just 22 years of age, but he has been a factor and is now third in the championship. But if I look down the championship standings with just a few seconds to go, it looks as though the man from Dallas, Texas, Edward Savajian, is going to take pole, and Archer has popped out again. Was a factor in the first race at Laguna Seca, and he is going to be on the front row. There's Ernie Francis Jr. Cam Eben takes... So we've got a real history going on there. We've got Eben and Archer at the top of the Trans Am board, two very famous Trans Am names. And here in 2020, those names have been resurrected for the resurrection of Riverside. I love it. So lots of drama going on there. But Ben, any surprises for you there?
No, I like the fact that Savajian is up front, Francis. There aren't really any surprises. I did get a note from one of our producers that we would like to mention that the reason for these penalties were for on-track incidents in the last race or the last couple of races, and that's why they were issued this extra weight of penalties. And our stewards are going to be watching this race to do the same thing for the next couple of races. That's just to keep everything fair and to make sure everybody's racing as they should be on track.
Yeah, I'm going to wait till we get on board with some of the leading drivers to give you a little bit more detail about the tracks and the nuances of this track, because it's a really, really interesting track. It's fast, it's technical, it's tough to overtake, and because it's so fast, it means that when you're committed to an overtake, you got to go through with it. And obviously, again, in the driver's briefing, you were talking about the fact that some drivers were warned, if you will, not to put a nose where it shouldn't be. It is e-racing, but we've got to, you've got to be mindful of that fact. So we are racing from Riverside. We've brought it back specially for the E-Trans Am Championship. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back with race one after this. Welcome back to Riverside International Raceway, where we show you the results of qualifying, and it's Edward Savajian of Dallas, Texas, with a 134.7, but look how close it is, 0.001. Cam Eben, brilliant stuff, just ahead of Cameron Archer in third position, and there really is nothing. Ben, have you ever seen anything so close in your whole life in terms of qualifying? That is incredible.
No, it's really fun, and I got to say the top three are Trans Am legacies. Edward Savajian's dad, Cam Evans' dad, and Dylan Archer's dad all race in Trans Am, and currently Edward Savajian is racing with us in TA2. Then you go to Ernie Francis Jr., six-time champion, two-time champion Lawrence. This is going to be a great race at a track that sadly no longer exists.
And yeah, watch out for Nick Racino and Merrill, I think. Southern looks good. Hurley's got weight penalties, but he's still managed to qualify in the top 10, and that should... I mean, he's got a choice now as Hurley. He can stay and hold position if he doesn't feel like he's fast enough and go for pole in the second race, and that might be what he's thinking. And then Devlin DiFrancesco, another single-seater expert, has come across to race in Trans Am. Delighted to have him on board, and really looking forward to this race for sure. And don't forget, we've got a reverse top 10 for the second race, a 12-lap race in all, and no fuel issues. The tires do go off, damage does affect the car, but it doesn't take you out of the race. What it does is it might slow you down in top speed if you have too many crashes. And of course, if you are deemed by the race director to be taking a few too many liberties, then there are penalties to be had for the next race. And we'll tell you about the next races to come. We've got 3 rounds left of our 8-round Esports Championship, the first ever in the 54-year history of Trans Am. Really looking forward to this, but yes, as you can see, those stands about to fill up. It's a beautiful day here in California. Looking forward to getting back to Los Angeles tonight. Lots of parties have been organized, and we will be ready to go 70s style. Looking forward to getting the bell bottoms on and going for it. There's that turn 9 last corner, and there are a couple of lines through there. And in fact, turn 9, the entry of it, is actually probably the best place for an overtake. We saw Ernie Francis. Here's the grid then. And we are ready to go racing. And that run up to turn 6, the long run through the S's, is going to be the key to the start of this race. A full field of 30 cars, modern, yes, but we are back in yesteryear as we reopen Riverside for the first time in 30 years. On go the lights. Out go the lights, and away we go. Eben gets away well. And everybody jostling for position now as they start to climb that hill for the first time. A 12-lap race in all. Eben, Archer, Francis, and Lawrence. Watch out for Sajan. Oh, that's Hurley getting in trouble. Hurley and Racino coming together. And that is big drama for the championship leader. Not what he wanted. He may have been a little aggressive there. I'm not sure who's at fault. But either way, drama right from the get-go. Eben takes up second place behind the big machine. Sponsored there, you see the wing of it. Edward Savagian. So it's your mate, Edward Savagian, who leads the way from Eben. Francis Jr. is third, but it looks as though Hurley Burley is in trouble and down to 16th already, Ben.
Yeah, and that's really unfortunate. We also had Dylan Archer fall back from 3rd place now to 10th place there. I saw Ernie Francis get by him. I don't know what happened. It looks like maybe he got knocked off a little bit or missed a shift. And then we also lost one of our points leaders, Nick Racino. And Nick Racino, being from this area, it's really unfortunate to see him drop back to 24th, Jonathan.
Yeah, we had a practice race earlier in the weekend, and Racino was one of the top 4. He got involved in that Hurley incident right from the start. I think they just touched as they went up the hill for the first time, and it took both of them out. But like I said, the damage is on, so they'll stay in the race. But that's a lot of work to do with not a lot of places to overtake here at Riverside. Keep your eye on Ernie Francis Jr. He's yet to win an esports race outside of Daytona, and of course that was his home race. And look at Hurley already making his way through as he comes out of 9 and onto the main straight again. I think that was Borchetta. He's just got past, and onto the main straight they come again. The number 3, Josh Hurley of Livermore, California. And of course Josh desperate to win here because California is his home, but what's he doing out there? Well, all sorts of drama going on, but the good thing about Riverside, and that was true in the day, is it's dusty and desert-like. And there is a lot of runoff like this that you can see, so you can make mistakes, but it's nasty. And if that dust and dirt gets onto the track, well, it's slippy as you like. But it's Savagian, Eben, Francis Jr., Casera, look at that. Casera's come from nowhere, and he's up to 4th. And this is a big, big moment for our E-Championship, because if Tyler Casera can do something here in this race, he's got a chance. I think it's only 10 points between them going into this. He's got a great chance of being in contention for the overall title come the final race at Lime Rock.
Yeah, now we're on board with Thomas Merrill. We were able to speak to him after the race, the practice races this week, and he gave us some really good insight on where the practice and where the passing lanes are, where the good places. And he said you can actually take a high line and possibly slingshot this turn 9 that they're going into right now. But really, this is a really tough place to try to pass. So it's going to be really fun to watch where these guys take their chances.
Yeah, well, the one obvious place, as we look at Hurley now, still battling away with Donahue, I think it is. But Hurley back into 9th position, and that's actually a good position for him to finish this race. But knowing Hurley, he'll want to come all the way through. But yeah, you talk about overtaking, Ben, as we go on board with Donahue. David Donahue, and of course Dad, known as the engineer. I wonder how much of an engineer this fella is, because he's had his rig for what, a few days now? Not much, and he's driving with one arm because he broke his wrist. But here we go, up to turn 6. This is what I'm talking about. Through here, this is 5, then under braking here at 6. And there is David Donahue, who is in his own right a Daytona and Le Mans class winner. So, yes, he has a famous father like so many drivers do that are currently racing. But Donahue has got his own record and is definitely an expert around Pikes Peak, and that's why he got his rig in the first place. That's a really smart move when you think about it, because Pikes Peak is one of those places, it's a bit like the Nordschleife. You can't remember all the corners. It's almost muscle memory. So I'm sure that's why he's done that. But this is his first ever sim race, and look at him. He's in the top 10 or just outside for now.
Yeah, and really keep your eye on Josh Hurley, our current points leader, now back into 9th place somehow, and he's really trying to work his way through the field. But Edward Savajian just set the fastest lap, and Ernie Francis Jr., who's now in 2nd, is really struggling to keep up.
Yeah, and I'm also keeping an eye on this man, Eben. Cam Eben is what we call a future TA star, and of course he's got Cliff Eben. His grandfather is a famous Trans Am racer, but we're hoping that the likes of he and several others will come to Trans Am in the real world and start racing with us. And that's been the beauty of this E-Championship, is that it's given some drivers that aren't as well known, like Hurley and Casera, really chance to shine. And then we've got our future stars and our current young stars, like JP Southern, just turned 18 and is currently in the top 6. He did a couple of races with us at the beginning at the end of last season, and of course was at Sebring. He didn't have a brilliant Sebring in February. That was our only real race so far, and we hope to go back to Mid-Ohio. In fact, we will be going back to Mid-Ohio at the end of June, so watch out. And this is a good time to tell you, as we look at JP Southern, to download the app, both SVRA and Trans Am. And Ben, that is the place, because we will be live streaming there. All the information is there, the latest news, the latest features. You've been cutting stories. I know you've been working around the clock. Great content on there to give you the real information you need if you're a Trans Am fan.
Yeah, if you're a Trans Am fan, please get on Google Play or the Apple App Store and download the Trans Am app. We're going to be going live at Mid-Ohio in less than a month. For Saturday and Sunday, we're going to be broadcasting some of the practice rounds with Trans Am at Mid-Ohio, which is always a favorite track with our Trans Am drivers and our Trans Am fans. And we're going to be there. There isn't going to be an audience there at Mid-Ohio, so that's your place to watch it. If you're used to watching Trans Am at Mid-Ohio, make sure you get the Trans Am app.
Nice overtake from Cameron Lawrence to move himself ahead of David Donahue. But Donahue coming back at 9 as they both exit 9. Lawrence and Donahue stuck together. Onto the main straight they come, but Lawrence has made it stick as they cross the strip again. Cameron Lawrence moves up to 12th position. And Cameron Lawrence was definitely one of my pre-race favorites for this one. He looked so good. He won a practice race earlier in the week, and they've been putting a lot of laps in. Scott Borchetta, as always. Oh, sorry about that. That was a little bit of a nerf, and I think that was Donahue just knocking him out of the way. But Lawrence definitely looked very sprightly indeed. Good to see the social distancing amongst the crowd there. Nicely done.
Yeah, but we look at now, Cameron Lawrence is coming up on Ridequist, who has the most weight due to penalties. So we're going to see, hopefully, Cameron Lawrence should be able to get by Ridequist. I'm not saying hopefully, but you never know what's going to happen. Lawrence is really tough to race. Even I think you were talking to Ridequist, and Ridequist was the one saying that Cameron Lawrence is the toughest one to race in these sims.
Well, here's the irony. Hurley has got past Casera. We're looking at Tyler Casera. He's in 8th at the moment, but Hurley is just up the road in 7th. So it's been drama-packed for Josh Hurley, but he's recovered well, and he's currently in 7th position. We're looking at Casera in 8th. Behind him is Lawless Allen in 9th. Then Lawrence, who we were on board with a moment ago. Through the kink they come at 8, and then into the NASCAR turn 9. The cambered turn, it's 10 degrees, that turn. I was asking Tyler earlier in the week if you can go high and take a slingshot. And he says, yes, you can. He said, but it's slower up there. The car slows down on the marbles and the dirt up there. And if you're trying to do an overtake into there, yes, you can pull it off. But generally speaking, it's actually faster lower.
Yeah, and I've been watching the scoring. Edward Savajian and Ernie Francis both just set their fastest laps. And knowing Ernie Francis Jr., he's got to be so frustrated thinking, I just set my fastest lap, but so did my competitor in front of me.
Yeah, it's very tough indeed. But Savajian, 2.3 seconds ahead. And Edward Savajian now doing a really, really good job. The man from Dallas, Texas. And as you say, he's got that dynasty. He's another one. His father raced, and he's grown up effectively in a racing family. And ironically, it would be fantastic for Savajian to win this race. His family restore old Corvettes. They've got a beautiful shop up there for restoration, for parts, and so on and so forth. So for him to win in a Corvette in a throwback race to Riverside would be really, really special.
Yeah, it would. Now, I got to give my shout out to Mark Miller, last year's TA2 champion. In the driver's meeting this morning, he said he had only done 4 laps at Riverside in practice, and he's in 6th place and holding 6th place pretty well with Hurley coming up behind him.
And we're taking a look at Devlin DeFrancesco. He and his brother Lachlan have been racing in the E-Championship. They've been busy boys, in fact. Devlin, of course, currently in racing in Europe at the moment, in FIA F3. And got a healthy career ahead of him. He's still a youngster. He was actually picked up, was Devlin DeFrancesco, by the young Chip Ganassi program when he was growing up in Canada, and was sort of taken under the wing, as it were. But then he headed off to Europe to chase the single-seater dream, and he is still doing just that. And he and his brother, both great racers. He's a little bit older, is Devlin. He's 20. I think his brother is 16 or 17, but Lachlan, too, a pretty good racer. And I asked Devlin who was the better sim racer, and he said, honestly, I hate to say it, but my brother. But they're pretty close.
Yeah, that sounds like a good brotherly rivalry going on there.
So as we get down to the business end of this first race, we're looking at Cam Eben in the number 55. You saw a little bit of damage to his car, and he definitely got into the wars a little bit. But right at the start, he was there and then suddenly disappeared. Good to see Scott Borchetta. And interesting, Scott Borchetta has been as a little nipper, as a youngster to this track. And in fact, I think this was one of the places where he first really ignited his love for the sport. And Scott Borchetta, not a pure racing driver through and through. He's been in music business for a long time, but he loves his racing. And he's a good friend of yours. I know he lives just down the road from you, right? Yeah,
he's in Nashville, Tennessee. Super famous here in Nashville, Tennessee from the music career. But I've been really impressed with the hard work he's putting into becoming a race car driver. He races with us in SVRA and V-Rock, and now in Trans Am, he's going to be in a TA2 car with us at Mid-Ohio. As we look at Lawrence coming into 9, Jonathan.
Yeah, Cameron Lawrence doing a really good job. And that was a lovely overtake. Like I said, going into 9 is the obvious overtake, and he made that stick nicely. And he's just got past Lawless Allen. Lawrence making up another spot. Lawrence now up to 9th position, and that'll put him on the front row for the second race. And interestingly enough, you mentioned Borchetta. It's ironic that, isn't it, Edward Savajian, the man who's leading the race, who's been helping Scott, who has been putting lap after lap on the sim. He did something like, for Barcelona, over 500 laps. So Scott Borchetta is definitely taking this very seriously and learning a lot and using the time to be stuck inside to really hone his skills.
Yeah, it's really impressive to watch. And he and Edward, both racing with Big Machine Vodka, are really having a good time and taking full advantage of this COVID quarantine.
A broken wing there just going by. I don't know who that was, but somebody with a little bit of damage. There it is. There's the damaged car. That's Racino. Yeah, he was involved. Here is Nick Racino, number 33. No, his wing's not damaged. It was
it's
the car in front of him.
I think it's Lostowski.
Yeah, Adrian Lostowski with a broken wing, but Racino was involved in that incident with Hurley at the start of the race, and he's been having to climb his way back through, and so far he's back up to 22nd, and he's just ahead of Lachlan DeFrancesco. Scott Legacy Jr. still not really figuring in the E-Championship, though we know in the real world he'll be taking it to everybody, I'm sure. But DeFrancesco, the other one, Devlin, up to 5th now behind JP Southern. Merrill now 3rd, and Francis Jr. That's the big man you got to watch, because he is the highest up the board in 3rd position in terms of the championship. So he's about to gain the most out of this. There's Lachlan DeFrancesco, 17-year-old from Canada, and just ahead of the number 89, Scott Borchetta of Nashville, Tennessee. So good racing throughout. Savajian, though, has pretty much controlled this race. Good, impressive show. We haven't seen a lot of him on track because he's on his own. He's up the road, 2.2 seconds. It's down to 2.1. So Ernie Francis Jr. is trying to reel him in. And if they get into traffic, Ben, that could be really interesting as we see Borchetta coming alongside into the right-hander to go up the hill. Nicely done. Borchetta goes through.
Yeah, this is because it's such a tough place to pass. And, if the lap traffic ahead of you is having a battle like this, it's going to be really hard for them to get over and let these leaders come by. And Thomas Merrill in third place seems to be kind of closing in slowly but surely on Ernie Francis Jr.
Yeah, and just as you say that, Ernie Francis Jr. is closing down quickly on Savajian. And I just wonder if Edward Savajian is in traffic at the moment at the front, because there's no question about it. The times have come down. You had a gap of over 2.5 seconds a minute ago. It's down to 1.7 on lap 9 of 12. Riverside is coming alive, folks. It might have been 30 years, but I can hear the California fans getting excited for what should be a cracking finish here. The likes of Parnelli Jones and Ken Miles used to rush around this circuit at high speed. They had a Formula One race here back in 1960. Sterling Moss, one of the greats, of course, sadly passed away recently, but it was Sterling Moss who won that race. The only ever Formula One race here.
I love the sound of these cars, Jonathan. It sounds like we are at a Trans Am race. They sound so good. There is no better race sound in the world than a Trans Am race at tracks like Mid-Ohio or at Sebring. They just sound so good thundering through those tracks.
Oh, no question about it. And like you say, we've got all identical Corvettes, but as you quite rightly pointed out, as we're looking at Robert Ricardo doing a good job, another man from Livermore. Oh, you can't do that, sir.
That's Mark Miller.
What's he doing? Mark Miller, our TA2 champion. And that could bring Super Jens to the table. He's not even involved in the race, but I think Super Jens might have a word about that.
Yeah, and Ernie Francis is slowly catching up with Savajian. I'd love to get a shot of that first three guys up there because it's really starting to get close as we're 10 laps into a 12-lap race.
Yeah, 2 laps to go, and as you quite rightly point out, Savajian was in the comfort zone of over 2.5 seconds a moment ago as we look at Lawless Allen. And there's Lachlan DiFrancesco making a move on Nick Racino in the 33, the all-purple Nick Racino. And these two, look at them side by side. Great racing here at Riverside. And no one's giving an inch, and Lachlan, nicely done, brakes as late as he dare and holds him off at turn 8. And these are the crucial corners. Somebody else off there into the dirt and dust, down the back straight and down towards that kink at turn 8, as they call it. They put that kink in there because we had several guys lose their brakes into 9 and fly over the top there. Riverside was famous for its excitement, but it's also had its tragedy too. And those of you who saw the Le Mans film recently, featuring Ken Miles, this is where Ken Miles was testing, sadly, when he did his last ever laps. But that's why you might recognize some of the track, as it's been featured in a Hollywood movie of late. Here's Ernie Francis Jr. in second place, the man from Florida, and you can see the gap now between himself and the leader. They've got some traffic, and I think that's what Savajian has been dealing with. Man, sponsored by One South Florida Wealth, and has put that new sponsorship to good use so far with a win at Daytona and third overall in the championship. Merrill, there he is. Thomas Merrill, 81, coming through turn 9, and we start the last lap now. But it's Savajian, Francis, Merrill, Southern, Miller, who was involved with a few fisticuffs, but he's up to 5th place, and that's a good recovery. Hurley recovered to 6th after his off in the first corner. Casera right there, keeping a watchful eye on him. And those two, once again, wheel to wheel here in California, the first and second in the championship. They're followed by Lawrence. DiFrancesco's dropped to 9th. Rydquist, good job done by the Swede. He is up to 10th position, but it's Savajian on his way to victory. We're looking at Merrill. What can he do against Ernie Francis Jr., I wonder? Time running out, though, Ben. And I think your mate, Edward Savajian, is going to become our 4th winner of the championship.
Yeah, possibly. But, I never count out Ernie Francis Jr. But knowing Ernie is always in racing for the championship. So he may be happy with the second place finish to really move him up, knowing where Hurley and Casera are in points at 5th and 7th place. I think Ernie, if he can't catch Savagian, will be happy with the second place.
Well, this has been an immaculate performance by Edward Savagian, but now you can see the gap. Ernie's got him in his sights as they head down the back of the circuit here at Riverside. Edward Savagian of Dallas, Texas, looking to carry on the family name in Corvette and win at this famous circuit that so many great Corvettes have raced at. He's coming out of 9. And you can see Francis Jr. has got the gap down to 1.1 seconds, but it's going to be Edward Savagian. Oh, I think he touched the wall then as he came out of the last turn. But he's going to take the checkered flag here at Riverside and take victory here in race 1 here in Riverside, California. As 30 years on, we take Corvette back to winning ways in Trans Am in the E-Championship. Ernie Francis Jr. takes 2nd place, and Thomas Merrill rounds out the podium. JP Southern, an immaculate 4th place by him. Good stuff by the youngster. Hurley, the championship leader, takes 5th. And who's following him home? Of course, Tyler Casera in 6th place. Then it's Miller, Lawrence, DiFrancesco 9th, and Carl Reitquist rounding out the top 10s. Your thoughts, Ben, on what has been a fascinating race, really, because Savagian dominated, but there was so much going on behind him.
There was, and it's just as the drivers told us after the first couple practices, that passing is really tough here. You really got to pick your lane and hope that the other drivers see you. And once Edward Savagian and Ernie Francis and Merrill got 1, 2, and 3, they pretty much stayed there and just raced hard. They kept getting the fastest laps, but it's just because it's such a narrow track and so hard to pass, it really all kind of unfolded in the first 3 laps.
Kudos to Borchetta. He held off Parsons there at the very line to take 15th place. Another good result for him. And disappointment, I suppose, for Racino involved in that early incident. And Boris said, again, in the pits, and same for Austin, Texas's Neubauer. But there's your winner, Edward Savagian and Big Machine Vodka. He is, of course, teammates with Borchetta, and has been helping Borchetta in the real world get to grips with Trans Am. But congratulations to Edward Savagian. And in a moment, we'll get the full results as the San Benito hills and mountains are in the background. A beautiful day here, but it is Edward Savagian with the win over Ernie Francis Jr. Thomas Merrill is 3rd, and then it's JP Southern. Hurley Casera, 5th and 6th. Important result for both of them. Miller is 7th, Lawrence 8th, DiFrancesco 9th, and that means Reitquist, 80 kilograms heavy, will start pole position for the reverse grid race 2. Lawless Allen is 11th. Donahue returns the famous Donahue name and does a good job with one arm, no less, in 12th position. Archer, Eben, another 2 famous names ahead of Scott Borchetta, Parsons, and Ocado. That's how it finished in race 1. We'll be back with race 2. Stay with us. Don't put the kettle on. There isn't time. And we'll be back with more action from the famous Riverside International Raceway after this. Welcome back to Riverside International Raceway, just outside Los Angeles, California. Sadly, it doesn't exist anymore, but we thought we'd take you back to yesteryear, to the golden years of Trans Am racing, now been going for 54 years. And it was in the late 60s and early 70s where Trans Am really came to the fore. The days of the European smaller front engined cars were still a very much dominant case, but once Camaro and Mustang got into the scene and started building their own, the likes of Dan Gurney coming into the scene, Jim Hall, you name it, they were all making their name here. Ken Miles, I mentioned earlier. This was one of the homes of Trans Am racing and a really popular venue to go to just outside Los Angeles and out in the desert, so didn't matter about the noise. Wasn't a lot of shops around then, but now this is a shopping mall, believe it or not. It was transformed in 1992 into a residential area, but there are still a few sights and sounds of the famous Riverside circuit to be seen in the street names, and there's even a digital museum now to remember the great Riverside circuit. In fact, Scott Borchetta owns one of the great Gurney Eagles that raced here to a victory for Bobby Unser back in the day. Some great names and great memories from this fantastic circuit. Here we go then. Who's going to make their name in race 2? Devlin Di Francesco lines up in the perfect spot here to really make some hay here in our reverse top 10 grid. The lights will come on in a moment. Ridequist is the man you've got to watch, though. He's got 80 kilograms of extra weight, and that's a problem, Ben.
Yeah, it is, especially here, because if he starts off slow and everybody else expects to be going fast there through 1 and 2, he could cause a huge bottleneck.
On go the lights. Out go the lights, and away we go, and Ridequist is off. Well, he has got away brilliant there, has Carl Ridequist. Everybody now jostling for position. Di Francesco has recovered well. In fact, Di Francesco, I think, has got the better line, and he does take the lead away from Ridequist as they head up the hill. More drama back behind as somebody goes off there into the dirt, but I don't think that was a heavy hit, and I think he'll recover. But all the way up to turn 6 goes the Kamui number 17 of Devlin Di Francesco, who's gone wide at 6, and back comes Ridequist. Ridequist almost getting side by side there as they exit 6. Down the long straight to 7, into the horseshoe. Coming up now, second gear at 7. Here we go. Lawrence up there in 3rd place. Good start from Cameron Lawrence. Di Francesco, though, leads the way. His brother back in the field in 12th position. But the youngster, the 20-year-old from Canada, leads the way in his first lead in Trans Am racing. He's never raced a real Trans Am car, so this is a real good opportunity for the single-seater expert. We had Juan Manuel Correa a couple of weeks ago. He got a 4th place at Barcelona, but now it's Di Francesco who introduced him to Trans Am racing, who's leading the way at the moment. There's Hurley. Ben, what can Hurley do from 6th?
You know, he's been moving up. It's crazy to watch, but Hurley, even with the weight penalties, is doing really well. I was super impressed with Ridequist at the start. You can just tell he's so talented with all of that weight to keep up with them there, but now it looks like as they're all hitting top speed, he's starting to fall back.
Yeah, Casera's got past him. You can see that now on your screen, and up to 3rd place, and that's why Hurley's got the hurry up, because Hurley doesn't want to let Casera go too far. Hurley just 2 spots behind. He's got Southern in front of him, and JP Southern won't want to give that position away to Hurley, who just hits the dirt for a moment as they go back uphill. Josh Hurley, the man we've got to watch now because he's getting very racy. So too this man, Ernie Francis Jr., coming into 6. Takes a nice tight line. Oh, might make him move on the number 40 of Mark Miller. Brilliantly done by Ernie Francis Jr. to overtake the TA2 champion. And Mark Miller has never raced Ernie Francis Jr. in real life, and now he just got a reason why, perhaps, because Francis doesn't hold back. That was a great overtake.
That's a race of champions right there. That's both of our 2019 champions in TA and TA2.
Yeah, it doesn't get any better than that. And that was a real classic overtake. We were saying that you can't overtake at 6, but he can. I love it. And at 8. Here he goes. He's going to take Hurley at 8. Francis Jr. not holding back. He's unfettered at the moment. And he's got Hurley in his sights right now as Francis Jr. And this is the race we've been waiting to happen. I think this championship is going to explode. Just to remind you, the top 3 in the championship going into Riverside were Josh Hurley, Tyler Casera, and Ernie Francis Jr. We expected... Ooh. Oh, no! And Di Francesco gets a hit from behind from Lawrence. And Lawrence has been affected heavier. In comes Casera. He's got between both of them. And Di Francesco did a very good job of not launching himself over the top of turn 9 there. How he held on, I'll never know. But I think we might need some new overalls after that one. But now comes Casera. Casera all over the leader after taking advantage of that nudge from Lawrence. And as we look back, you can see that Casera sees his chance. This is great racing. Now, we saw Francis Jr. going up the inside of 6. Can he do that here on the number 17, I wonder? No, he hasn't pulled it off. So we are Di Francesco, Casera, and Lawrence now, your top 3. Southern still 4th. Ridequist has got past Hurley, so I think Hurley must have made a mistake. As we see the number 40, that's Mark Miller. He's currently in 8th position. Then it's Allen, and now the other Di Francesco, the youngster. I say the youngster, they're both pretty young, but his brother Lachlan is now 10th position. So this is a good day for Canada so far here in California.
And I tell you what, this whole reverse grid thing really came into effect here because Edward Savajian got caught up into some stuff happening. It looks like turn 6 in lap 1, and now he's back to 15th place. He won last race, and now he's at 15th.
Wow, look at this race. It's Devlin Di Francesco is doing everything in his power to hold off Tyler Casera. And as they come under the bridge and down to the kink, they're side by side. Something's got to give. And Tyler Casera takes the lead, or does he? Back comes Devlin Di Francesco on the inside at 9. They're going to be neck and neck as they exit turn 9. But Casera goes high and wide on 9 and holds on to the lead. And now takes the lead for good. And now back comes Di Francesco as they come across the strip again. Meanwhile, Francis Jr. still all over Hurley. What a race this is turning out to be. Josh Hurley, the championship leader, knows he's in a battle now because Francis Jr. knows that all he needs to do is get ahead of Hurley, and he's going to close the gap on both Hurley and Casera as this race winds down. Back with Hurley in the number 3. It's been a sensational run for him so far, Josh Hurley. And he's one of the busiest men in motorsport as far as I can see. He does training, he does sim racing, he does real racing, he does engineering. He's looking after Kent Vaccaro as his engineer in Formula 3. Kent Vaccaro in this race, in fact. So busy boy is Josh Hurley, but he seems to be really enjoying it. He was full of it when he won first time out at Laguna Seca, and the smile hasn't left his face. Now, what can Hurley do here? He's got his own race going on with the number 46 ahead of him.
Look at that lead that Casera is now pulling on Cameron Lawrence as they go down that back straight into the kink into turn 9. It looks like Casera is poised to just take off right now.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how many of the top boys have come through. Oh, no! Di Francesco, that was the problem. He suddenly disappeared from the leaderboard. Oh, he's just come together with, no. That was not what they taught you at school, and that is going to bring Super Jens to the fore, I'm sure. But either way, Di Francesco, it was all going perfectly right, and then suddenly he was in a mess.
Yeah, you got to wait for those corner workers to wave you out. He just went out without looking at the corner worker and caused a huge pileup.
Yeah, absolutely. Unbelievable. So, Casera, Lawrence, Southern, Ridequist, Francis, Hurley, Miller, Allen, Merrill, Archer. That's your top 10. Here is JP Southern in that Procure Network. Number 61. And back with Hurley. Hurley still looking for a good result out of this race, but Francis has got through. Ernie Francis Jr. is up to 5th place, and you would put an odds-on bet that he should get past Ridequist by the end of this lap because Ridequist is carrying a lot of extra weight. And in terms of talking to Carl during the week, he reckons it was at least a second and a bit that he was carrying in terms of time anyway. And so this should be easy work for both Francis and Hurley. And that's why we'll stick with this battle as they continue. And Francis and Hurley, I'm sure, will both be looking for a podium out of this. Ridequist quite rightly gets out of the way and lets them pile through down towards the kink. Ridequist slips into position behind Francis Jr. And that's a smart move by the Swede because he might be able to have a pop at him as they come into 9. If he gets in the slipstream, under braking here, he might be able to get back at Francis. He thought about it, didn't he? But he had to go They had to take avoiding action and go wide, and that's allowed Hurley through. But I think that's as much as Ridequist can put up as defense, shall we say, as both of them have gone through, as predicted, by the end of this lap.
Yeah, it's fun to watch, and Ridequist is really holding his own. He's 9th in points, and he's really showing us the talent that he has in these sims over this series. It's just unfortunate he's having to carry all this weight.
Now, I don't know if it's rumor or social media speak or just pure gossip on Facebook, but there is rumor that possibly Josh Hurley may have to miss a round. And if that's the case, this championship is wide open. So we'll see what happens. But at the moment, everybody knows that this championship is wide open, and it's as open to this man, Ridequist, as anybody else. He's been a real revelation for me. He takes it very, very seriously. He's an engineer. He's a bit like Hurley. He sort of outthinks himself. Hurley was telling me he doesn't like to practice too much because he overthinks it. And I get what he means. I think it's more intense, actually, than the real thing. When your life's on the line, you don't worry about the concentration. But in a sim, you can outthink yourself. And I think that's been an issue that certainly Hurley's had to deal with. But both he and Casera have been dedicated to the cause for the last 6 weeks. And it's been great to watch.
Yeah, and I tell you what, Riverside has added a whole new dimension because none of these drivers, except for Boris said that we can confirm, have raced here. Some of them have some kind of experience here, but it was really neat to see after the first race, we're in a text exchange with all the drivers. How many drivers were on there either blaming other drivers or apologizing for something that they did in race 1. And so we'll see what happens after race 2.
Fastest lap, 1:34.7. That's very quick. And I think Francis Jr. on the same sort of pace as well. Everybody's starting to set their fastest laps now as we get down to lap 7 of 12. This is the second race from the famous Riverside International Raceway. If you don't recognize it, you shouldn't. It's 30 years gone. And in fact, we're reviving it this weekend, especially because this is where one of the golden eras of Trans Am took place back in the late 60s and early 70s. But this is a pretty golden era right now as we go back on board with Merrill as he chases down the hill again on Carl Ridequist. Over those humps where the car goes light. Then into this very tight horseshoe second gear turn. And if you go wide there, you can perhaps let somebody in. You've got to get good drive out of here because it's another long straight and back uphill again. And this is where Ridequist will struggle. You can see he just doesn't have the top speed, and Merrill will go through and does so. Into turn 8 then. Merrill makes up his move. He's now up to 6th place, and his next opponent will be Josh Hurley just up the road. And in fact, it's going to be a group of 4 drivers ahead of him, and that includes Hurley, Francis Jr. and Southern. But it's still Tyler Casera leading now by 2 seconds, just over 2.4 seconds over Cameron Lawrence. Scott Borchetta doing a really good job so far. Not got the experience of Scott Borchetta. He's getting a lot of help from Edward Savagian, who is down in 12th position, not having the showing that he had in race 1. Not sure what's happened to Edward, but either way, he'll get some points out of this, that's for sure. Good run by Scott Lagasse Jr. up into the top 15 for the first time. By the way, Borchetta down in 17th at the moment. As we look at Doug Winston for the first time. You know, Doug Winston's been a constant in this E-Championship, and he's done pretty good. He's always there, isn't he?
Yeah, he's always there with us. I really like his determination. He had a great time with us until the last couple laps at Sebring in his TA2 car. He's kind of a teammate with Adrian Lostovsky, but it seems like he is having a great time racing with us in this E-Racing.
And Ben, while we've got a moment with a couple of laps to go, we are going back to real racing. What did you see at Sebring that was a surprise, and what should we be looking for in the real world? What should the fans be waiting for to go on the app and have a look at?
Well, we've got a lot of newcomers into the TA2 series, and
like this
really,
man.
Yeah, JP Southern. I think he's really showing us his talent. I'm excited to see what Edward Savagian and Scott Borchetta can do. And then in the TA class, it's Ernie Francis Jr., Chris Dyson, Adam Andretti, Amy Ruman, Tommy Dreesy. There's a big rivalry happening there with those drivers. And then we have this new GT class, the XGT class, with some newcomers, Eric Joyner and Ken Twaits. And it's going to be a great season, especially because almost all of the races are going to be broadcast live streamed on our Trans Am app.
Yeah, if you haven't downloaded it, download it now and just go to gotransam.com and you can get all the latest information from Amy Greenaway, our press officer, who will give you the race reports, and there are plenty of links down to download the app. But JP Southern, the man we were looking at a moment ago, is definitely one worth talking about. He's just 18 years of age, and he is a classic racer. He's one of America's top karters, won many, many karting titles during his teams. He had a big accident, actually, as a karter, broke both his ankles, took some 18 months off, but then came back and won the first race he raced. As we take a look at Archer, who had a really good first race, and he's got a good battle going on too. He's currently in ninth. He's got Lawless Allen ahead of him and Rydquist just ahead of him. Through the gearbox and over the humps and into the horseshoe. Nice and smooth on the throttle. That's good racing.
Yeah, Lawless Allen right in front of him was our 2019 TA2 Rookie of the Year. And then we're hoping that Dylan Archer is going to be our 2020 Rookie of the Year in TA2.
Oh, and just as we focus in on Archer, he makes a mistake. Not to worry. But that's what I like about Trans Am. As we mentioned, you've got the likes of youngsters who are still in their teens, like Archer and like JP Southern. But I was going to finish off JP Southern's story. So he did Formula 4 and Formula 3, but then kind of sort of got to a plateau in terms of how much money he could spend and how much he and the family could afford. It's a family affair, effectively. Oh, no! And Southern turns round Francis just as I'm praising him. He hits Francis from behind by the looks of things. I wouldn't mind getting a replay of that. Francis has recovered, but that was not what he needed. And that is going to help Rydquist. Oh, there's all sorts of drama going on here at Riverside. Well, I said that Knight Rider and a few other Love Bug films were made here, but we've got quite a drama going on ourselves here at Riverside today. Damage to Ernie Francis Jr.'s rear wing by the looks of things. JP Southern probably in trouble. There's Parsons. We haven't mentioned Cameron Parsons. There he is in the number 88. Currently down in 16th position.
Yeah, and Cameron is one of our top drivers in TA2 on the West Coast Series and from California. And he drives a yellow Camaro with us in TA2. Always a great driver, and he's having a blast in these sims.
Yeah, that's a thing that should not be forgotten. This is not a one-make series by any chance or stretch of the imagination. We've got a whole bunch of different marks, and the beauty of Trans Am is that we've kept those marks throughout the 54-year history of this championship. So it's steeped in storied history. You just need to look it up, and that's why we brought you back to Riverside here to kind of reinvigorate some of the classic tracks, and Riverside was definitely one of those as we go back with a classic name in Eben. Cam Eben, though, the future star, let's hope, currently in 8th position. He's chasing down our current TA2 champion. That's Mark Miller in the number 40. They come under the bridge and down towards the kink, and this is not a place I'd want to take on Mark Miller. Woo, go on, and he's done it. Oh, he's not afraid. No respect there. But back comes Miller around the outside at 9. Mark Miller keeps his foot in. Go on, Mark, round the outside. And he drops down now, and he'll try and get a run on him here. But that was good racing between these two. Back comes Mark Miller down as they cross the line together. He looks to the inside as they head up the hill again. Mark Miller not to be outdone. And he said, listen, whippersnapper, I'm the champ. What are you doing overtaking me at 9? I wonder if Mark might have a pop at him at the top of the hill. We'll soon find out, but that was good racing between those two in the closing stages of this second race. Eben, though, gets the better of him and heads up to 6 and over the hill. Meanwhile, Rossino and Borchetta in their own battle.
No, that's Savagian. This is going to be quite a battle because this is a points battle right here. They're in 10th and 11th, way behind 9th place, but they're going to have their own battle because they're really close in points in the championship.
Yeah, Rossino's had a tough day here at Riverside. It's going to be a long run back to LA tonight for him because he had high expectations of getting at least a podium out of here, and I would have thought Savagian is going to be dogged now to stay in the top 10. As you quite rightly point out, this is 4 important points here, and when it comes to Savagian, who got that win, he's going to put himself into contention now with 3 more rounds to go. So don't count out the man from Dallas, Texas, the restorer of Corvettes, the family business that restores Duntoff Motors, that's what they're called. And we'll keep an eye out for Savagian, who's definitely taken Riverside by storm today. But it's Casera still out front, leading the way by just over a second from Cameron Lawrence. Hurley is up to 3rd, and that is great racing from Josh Hurley from Livermore, California.
Final lap.
Final lap then, here we go. Don't think anybody else, unless Lawrence can do something on Casera in the closing stages. I think we're set to stay as we are, although Merrill may have the better of Hurley. Here we can see the battle. There's Hurley in the number 3. Just behind him is Thomas Merrill. Hurley gets on the power early as he heads down the hill, out of 6 and down towards the horseshoe. Just don't think Merrill's close enough. He's going to have to do something dramatic. He's getting closer, though. He braked very late. Here's your leader, Casera. The gap, 1.3 seconds now, so he's got a good controlled lead in the number 4. Now, Casera had such a bright start, and he and Hurley at Laguna and Road Atlanta went wheel to wheel. Cameron Lawrence took a win in the second race at Road Atlanta. Then we went to Daytona. Ernie Francis Jr. popped out there. Casera and Hurley were a factor. That's what remained the championship lead. But Casera, this is going to be a really, really important win for him. And the gap was 10 points at the beginning of the weekend. But the famous number 4, the man from Manheim, Pennsylvania, dives into turn 9 at the famous Riverside International Raceway. And Tyler Casera will take the checkered flag and win at Riverside. Lawrence will be second, but Hurley holding on desperately for third and does so to hold off Thomas Merrill. Good racing between those two. RideQuest, despite the 80 kilograms, will be in 5th place. And Ernie Francis Jr., who was taken out by JP Southern, will finish 6th, but they, Super Jens and the stewards may just have something to say about that. Southern, in the end, finishing 13th. We're looking at Nick Rossino, who's going to cross the line in 11th place behind Edward Savagian. Scott Borchetta, again, another 15th place for him. That's 2 15th places, and that's good stuff for a man who's been trying so hard to practice his sim racing and get on top of it. But it's donuts here in California, and Tyler Casera is handing them out. There's a good look at the number 4. I like the paint scheme on there. He's got Howe and Carbotech brakes. Those are his sponsors.
No damage, I can see.
No. And in fact, a pretty good run by Tyler. Kept out of trouble. Took advantage when, if you remember, he basically took advantage of an incident coming out of 8 and into 9, and he just sort of sneaked his way through. And that was just good driving and smart driving by Tyler. And a deserved winner there. But we now have 2 winners here in California. One of them, Edward Savagian, and the other is Manheim's Tyler Casera. So Riverside goes back into silence and back to yesteryear. Ben will roll up his pantaloons and bell bottoms and put the bright coloured tie-dyes away for another year. But it's Casera who wins. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Casera wins, Lawrence is second, Hurley third, Merrill fourth, RideQuest, Francis Miller, Archer, Eben, and Savagian the top 10, Rossino, Allen, Southern, Parsons, and Borchetta. Ben, your final word, anybody you want to mention out of that top 15?
I think I was most impressed with Carl RideQuest to be able to keep a top 5, to finish 5th with all of that weight and the battles that we saw going on there. That's quite impressive.
Well, one thing I can tell you, with 3 rounds to go of our E-Championship presented by Pirelli, Trans Am is going to be heading for a real showdown at our final round, which is Lime Rock, and we've got a few surprises before then. So stay with us, watch out, download the app, keep on, gotransam.com for all the information on our next race. My thanks to Ben Sissel, I'm Jonathan Green. Join us next time out, and we'll be racing once again in cyberspace. We'll see you then.